As always, the recording's going to have no idea what we were talking about prior to this. Hello, everybody. Welcome to what is going to be hopefully quite a nice video that is on the topic of how to be a Leeds fan, indoctrinate your child into being a Leeds fan, because as you know, we're on the third video of guest week for the baby. Uh, I've got a new human being to indoctrinate into being a Leeds fan, and a female human being. There's a female human being right here. How are you doing, Evie?
I'm good. I'm good. I don't think I've ever been described as a female human being before, but yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Little bit of a foggy head. We've discussed as to why prior to this. But yeah, for context for everyone, there's a bit of a gap between the first batch of these I recorded and this one. It's currently the 29th of November, but it's going to be coming out soon-ish after the baby is here. Um, and it is currently the morning of the Manchester City match. Before we dive into the main topic of conversation, let's just cut that one off. Would you like to make any predictions that will age horribly?
Um, Dan James is gonna channel his inner Stuart Dallas, and we're gonna get a surprise result. I don't see us winning, but we're gonna get a surprise result, i.e., let's go for a draw. And I think every single one of us would be over the moon elated if we managed to get a draw today. So yeah, Dan James rescues us a draw, and we shall henceforth have to call him Sir Daniel of James.
Sir Daniel of James. Not
Hmm.
Sir Daniel James of Hull, just Sir
No, no,
Daniel
no.
of
Sir
James.
Daniel of James.
Okay. Um, yeah, I'll be honest. The normal optimist me has already triple captained Erling Haaland on Fantasy League
Oh,
because you kind of have to because this is going to be an experience, I think.
because he
Um,
rested like 10 players as well midweek, including
which is a dick
Haaland.
move. Let's be
Oh, it
clear.
absolutely is.
That 11 they put out against Leverkusen could just beat us anyway. Like, that's the Champions League.
I mean, they lost, so it
Like,
didn't necessarily work out well for them, but they're
I know that's
already
what I'm
pretty much
saying.
guaranteed through to the next bit anyway. So,
I know, but just be nice, lads. Come on, don't kick us while we're down. We don't deserve that. Probably.
see, what if it ends up being like the Erling Haaland that we faced last time at the Etihad, where he missed sitter after sitter after sitter? We lost 2-1 in that game, but he didn't take the penalty. He gave it to. Did he give it to Gundogan? Or did he give it to Bernardo? He gave it to somebody else. He didn't. They got a penalty, and he didn't take it.
Have we played against Erling Haaland before?
Yeah, yeah, in the
Oh yeah,
relegation season.
he did score twice.
That was at Elland Road, wasn't it?
Uh, yes.
Yeah, but we're away at Man City. In the Man City away, he didn't score against us then. He missed so
That's
many sitters.
so. You know what? We'll say Leeds United win with Brendan Aronson doing a Stuart Dallas-esque last-minute winner. Yeah,
Oh,
is that what we're going with?
it has to be done, James. It has to be done, James. He's my boy.
I, I, you see, I know he's the boy, and I do. You know, I respect the boy. But just imagine how confused people are going to be online if Brendan Aronson scores a winner against Manchester
He
City.
can get all the assists.
Oh, all one assists.
All of the assists.
All
Well, no,
one of our
because we'll
assists.
we'll be 2-0 down, and Dan James
Okay.
will get us
Dan James
to
hat trick.
2-all. You know, no, 2-all. I'm not
Oh,
going the
okay.
win. I'm going the draw.
Okay. So even in our delusions, we're not seeing us winning this game. No, okay.
even even my deepest fantasies won't allow me to see Leeds getting a win today. It
No,
just allows me to scrape a draw, and we are like over the moon because of said draw.
yeah, it'd be nice. It won't happen, but it'd be nice. Anyway, enough talk about what is now in the past. In the comments, shout at us for being idiots and being a little bit too optimistic. But so we got to talk a little bit baby indoctrination, footballing things. I should really rephrase that at some point.
Yeah.
So this is also potentially going to take a little bit of a sort of side discussion in the direction of like women in football talk. So if you're someone that doesn't like wider sort of philosophical chats about the role of football in modern society and all that kind of stuff, you're just welcome to go. That's fine. But sometimes we go into these deeper conversation-y bits
But
on the
don't go because
channel,
you could
and that's
educate
nice.
yourself.
You could also educate yourself. That is a good point. Um, or we could educate you. I say that Evie will educate you, as we described each other on the sort of natter we were having before this. We've got not big, not clever. So I'm going to let not big take this. When it comes to sort of your experience in becoming a football fan, how did that happen, or was it just sort of like naturally something that was always there?
So I was, and I hate myself for this now, I was a Leeds fan in kind of name only. My dad was an avid Leeds fan, my brother was. I went to a few games when I was younger, but I'm not gonna lie, like it wasn't really my cup of tea because I didn't understand it, and Leeds were also in a terrible place then. It wasn't like I was and they weren't season ticket holders or anything. They just went to games whenever they could, and both worked full time, so it wasn't always a possibility. But I always kept up to date with how they were because again it just gave me as a girl who at the time wasn't that interested in football, it gave me another avenue to chat with my dad about it if I kind of kept up to date with it. But it was, and again, this people call people all sorts of what do they call them? Like plastic fans and things like that, because I came into it really when Bielsa came in. But I think a lot of people did, and a lot of people that maybe were really into Leeds during the 90s and early 2000s when, we were fighting
Yeah.
to get in the Champions League and things like that. And then obviously, as the chaos ensued, dropped off because that happened. People can't just go back and say that it didn't happen because it did. Ellen Road now has a 30,000 waiting list, but there were times when they couldn't get 20,000 people in the stadium. So
Yeah.
Bielsa reignited that flame, not just for me, but for lots and lots of people. But he made football interesting. He made it exciting. He made somebody who was relatively kind of beige about football. I always watched England, and now I'm kind of the other way round. I watch England. They are a little bit more exciting under Tuchel, but we're still ultimately underwhelming and overhyped up a lot of the time for the players and the expense of our team. England should do far better than they have done, and the women do exactly what they should be doing. Hence why we've won the last 2 Euros. But Bielsa made football exciting. He made it more than just football, which is, from
He
my
made it like a
perspective,
philosophy as well. Like
yeah, is what
when it
I,
came to the litter picking stuff as well on the
yeah,
training ground, it was like,
exactly.
let's cement this in something rather than just you go and play a little bit of football and kick a ball about for a bit, other people come and watch you. It's like this is how much time people need to put in and how much effort people need to put in to watch you do your thing, and that's why it matters.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and I think
I
no, no,
noticed that
no,
I've jumped
no,
across, but it's
that's
one of those sort
okay.
of Bielsa-isms where it's sort of like I really like that part of the philosophy where it's like
Absolutely.
grounding it. Yeah,
And it's not just like, I think the word philosophy gets used so often in football nowadays, with um oh god, I want to say Canate, but it's not Canate. Oh gosh, former Man City player, Burnley manager. He's
company.
now company. Um, and the same with Russell Martin as well. All of these people with philosophies, and when their philosophy is more important than the actual team, that's not a philosophy. That's just an ego boost. Um, Whereas Bielsa's philosophy, like you just said, transcended beyond football. It made people believe in something again. And I think that that's so important, especially right now with everything that's going on in the world, which we won't get into, but we all know kind of what I'm referring
But we
to.
could.
No, we could, and we know that you love a political discussion. But people need something to feel positive about. People need something to believe in, something that isn't, when you break it down, it isn't important. Football isn't important. In the grand scheme of things, nobody is going to live or die because of football being played. They could, because of outside influences on said match, and we know two of our own having been unalived for the YouTube algorithm, because I know that the M word is often not.
I will be honest. I don't give a shit about the YouTube algorithm. I've just said the term. I don't give a shit. So go for it. Like TikTok speak can fuck off.
Well,
like,
we know that
yeah.
Chris and
But
Kev
we know what you mean.
were murdered, and nothing will ever bring them back. But if you take some disgusting people out of the equation, the actual game of football, nobody will live and die for that actual game. But people need something to believe in, because when everything else, when you can't afford to put food on your table, when you can't afford to turn the heating on, when you're having to decide whether to feed yourself or feed your children and look after your family, and something gives you a little shred of escapism, that is what football is there for, and that is what Bielsa gave Leeds as a city, Leeds as a wider footballing community, and a wider kind of love of the area as well, of all the surrounding areas that feed into, Wetherby, Harrogate, even York, because that's where the under-21s play the majority of their games. So it gave such a massive lift to the direct area and indirect area, and also just made it something new. It wasn't stale, it wasn't repetitive. Yes, there were, as Scott Parker would say, patterns of play, but it was exciting because it was like organized chaos. It was everything. Like, it became the very oxygen that, as a now avid football fan, you craved, and that you needed, because it wasn't just a bag of wind being kicked around by 22 people on a pitch. It was, these people are fighting for one another. They have each other's backs. They know where they're expected to be. We play blind passes to one another because of the fact that Bielsa had them so regimented, and it was like regimented fluid in terms of everybody moved, and it looked chaotic, a bit like water does. It has no structure to it, but then all of a sudden this worldie of a pass from Phillips would come in, and it would just land. And obviously Jack Harrison is now an incredibly divisive person, but when he was our Jackie, him and his cushioned feet, there are very few people in the world who can control, like, that first touch is beautiful from Jack Harrison, and it certainly was under Bielsa. But you'd be like, you were all just running around like absolute lunatics, and then this pass has gone seemingly to no one, and all of a sudden Jack Harrison is there, or Ayling's there. It's just it just made it so exciting. And one of the most exciting and terrifying but exhilarating games I've ever watched was the Birmingham 4 Leeds 5 game. I mean, that was just, if you were to say, what do you want your team to be like? What do you want? And what would your doctor definitely not recommend? But what do you want your belief and your philosophy to be? I would say go watch that game and watch the chaos, watch the determination, watch two teams giving a crap about not giving up, because Birmingham were just as good as us in terms of they also didn't give up, because we went up 4 times in that game until the final time, and they didn't give up either. Hence why it gets to, I think it's like the 80th minute, and there's still like 5 goals left to be scored, and you're like, 5 goals in the last 10 minutes plus stoppage time, you're having a laugh.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but there is, and you're like, oh God, it's just so exciting. And Bielsa made that possible. Bielsa made a bunch of misfits not only just get so close in the first season, then so close and eventually kind of do it in the second season, got them to 9th in the Premier League. Like 9th with a team that had players, yes, you had your Stardust, like, you had Rafinha in there. And obviously Melier at the time was an incredibly good goalkeeper as well. So you had kind of sprinklings of Stardust in there. But the foundations of that team were a team that were the middle of the championship and were cemented there as well. They were playing, we got to 9th and we had like Tyler Roberts.
And he played consistently. It wasn't even just a case of like, and then Tyler Roberts was on the bench. Like, if I have a quick look at how many minutes he got, Tyler Roberts that season played in 27 games and started 14. Like, it's not, and he's currently playing at Northampton. Like, what? How?
The Bielsa effect. Like,
Yeah.
that is such a prime example of what Bielsa can do and what he can do when players buy into it, not when all the prima donnas have meetings and say that they want to get rid of him. But when you actually commit to it, and when it's like when two lightning storms kind of meet, and all of a sudden they create this utterly like beautiful, chaotic light show in the middle of an incredibly dark sky, and that was Leeds, and that was Bielsa. And is there any wonder why we can't get over him? Like, he, the whole cliche of the Bielsa widows, it's there for a reason. Like, he spoiled football, really, for me.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wasn't that interested in it, then saw Bielsa's football, and basically everything else will just fail in comparison. Because, and that this isn't even me saying that, obviously, with the current feeling on edge about Daniel Farke, this isn't even me saying that I think we should just go get Bielsa back, especially if Uruguay say adios to him. Because do I think that lightning can strike twice? I think he's the only man that could ever make it happen. But I don't know if like, I just want to. It's like, when you rewatch a childhood film or go back to a place
and you notice
that you've been
the little problems, or like, oh man, that joke was really racist or something, and it's like, to be clear, in context, I'm not calling Marcelo Bielsa a racist or anything like that, but more of a, it's a few years later, the squad is different, and we don't know if that was just the perfectly built jigsaw to fit together. And if
and for as amazing as Bielsa was, we were in the championship for 2 out of his 3.5 years here, and we got Rafinha. Rafinha, who was just recently lost out to the Ballon d'Or. Like, he's an incredible player, and we had him at our club for 2 years. So you do have to, a solid 85% of where we got to was down to Bielsa. But you can't deny the fact that having Rafinha in your team is going to make a massive difference. Having Jack Harrison have the season of his career, having Stuart Dallas having the season of his career, having Patrick Bamford having the season of his career, all of those things, again, it's the perfect lightning in a bottle moment. Is it ever going to happen again? Can you see? And I suppose it's a difficult question, because could we have seen the majority of the players, Calvin Phillips, Stuart Dallas, Berardi, could you have seen all of those players playing in the Premier, having won the championship and playing in the Premier League? Well, no, you couldn't. But I don't know whether I can see any of these players being up to Bielsa's standard. And we also know that Bielsa doesn't like to come in halfway through a season. He hasn't done a Bielsa pre-season where we think is utterly shit, but it turns out is actually, very good, other than his final season. But I think just all that excitement made me fall in love with football, and it became less of a chore to watch it and more of a I'm now addicted to it. I watch so much football. I don't just watch Leeds, and in fact, at the minute, it's hard to watch Leeds
Yeah.
because it feels like we're making so many of similar decisions that we made the last time we went down. And I am actively watching the Championship, not just because I'm a sadistic sod, but genuinely, I find it more interesting half the time because of the fact that you're not having to stop for 10 minutes for VAR. Yes, they make crappy decisions. I get that. And we got so frustrated last season when we lost out on so many goals that were perfectly Middlesbrough away, for instance, where we should have won 3-0. You know, Patrick Bamford should have got his would it have been his 60th goal? I can't remember.
Like that,
It was supposed to be like quite a
like a
poignant
landmark
kind of
one,
and you know, he had that robbed from a perfectly onside decision. But give me that Middlesbrough game every day of the week versus having to wait, having to not be able to celebrate. And again, the Premier League is where the money is, but it's not where the enjoyment is. You know, the enjoyment and the actual, you know, yes, they're the best quality players, but quality isn't all. I don't know. I know what I'm trying to say, but it isn't necessarily coming out in the right way.
They're the best. I think the way that I'd want to put it is that because that's where all the money is, that's where no one wants to take a risk. So whereas the Championship is, if you take a risk and everything goes right, you can end up in the Premier League and you end up incredibly wealthy. Whereas with the Premier League, it's if you take a risk and you lose a game, then you lose the next, then you drop out of the Premier League, and suddenly your club is very, very, very poor compared to where it was before, which is a bad spot to be in.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of risk averseness is also why you've got VAR, because it's like, well, I don't want to go down because, like happened a couple of seasons ago with the goal line decision thing, I don't want to get relegated because of a bad decision, and the Premier League don't want to relegate anyone because of a bad decision, because the legal case in that instance is going to be ridiculous. They will lose a lot of cash.
Yeah.
On your earlier note, by the way, you don't know whether the squad is sort of a Bielsa E1. I think it's not too unsuited, to be honest with you, because
I mean, it would be nice to see Dan James be able to be the Dan James that Bielsa wanted instead of having to play the number 9
to be a winger
role.
under Bielsa's system like he should have been in the first place. But when it comes to your fullbacks, you've got Bogle, who can do the bombing on bit. You've got Gudmundsson, who can do the bombing on bit. And interestingly, Bielsa never had a proper left back. He had Dallas, who was a winger, and he had Alioski, who was a winger. And then a bit of Barry Douglas, but there's a reason he immediately went to Poznan
as well
for a bit, but it was sort of an injured Firpo. And Firpo, we know he's not left back. He's a number 9 for the Dominican Republic.
Absolutely, he's a free spirit. It's Firpo.
You've got Ampadu, who's your Phillips. You've got Stroke Rodon. Rodon is just your Cooper replacement, I guess. Goalkeeper doesn't matter too much.
Because basically all of them are crap.
I don't think Perry is. I think with the free kick goal, it's taken on the edge of the 18-yard box.
I think that's Rodon's fault.
It's on Rodon, yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
but Rodon has been our most consistent player this season, so he's allowed to have a poor game kind of thing. Yeah. And I don't think we necessarily played bad. It was compounded by previous games. It was compounded by the Forest game. You know, I think if we get a draw out of that Forest game and then the Villa game happens, I don't think everybody's as crazy about it. I don't think everybody's as kind of self-destructive, throw everything away if we get something out of the previous 2 games. But because we haven't, and because we lost 3-0 to Brighton and then 3-0 to Forest, it just feels very like, when is our next point? Not even a win. When's our next point coming from? Yeah.
We'll take that. Yeah.
Like,
I think you've also got the note of and we're getting away from the initial conversation here, which was like female football fans, but that's fine. You've got the sort of initial note of it was the route to losing. Because if you just lose 2-1, fine, that happens sometimes. But you lose 2-1 whilst letting your opponents control the pace of the game, whilst letting them control the shape of the game by having not the first subs, but our first substitution was because of a concussion, so it doesn't really count. And then you let them have the second batch of subs, and it's kind of like, okay, it's taking the piss now a little bit. I think that's the sort of underlying thing there.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of the frustration came from, rather than just, we've lost to a team in the top four. That's fine, that happens. But it was more, we've seen that we could have got something here, and then we gave it away in the same way that we always do.
But it's like, this game would have been far more easy to take had we have not screwed out over previous games. You know, when you look at the Bournemouth one specifically, the Fulham one as well. Like, if you look at those games and you think, if we hadn't have screwed over games that we deserved either a point or all 3 points out of, then losing to, like you say, a top four team who've been consistently in Europe for the last kind of 4 or 5 years, you know, like Villa have been in, you know, they've done Conference, Champions League and Europa over that period of time. So realistically, they're going to be better than us. They've had hundreds of millions of pounds more than we have over the same period of time. Of course, they're going to be good. Like, there is no shame in losing. You can feel resentment because us and Villa were on the same trajectory in that relegation season. We make the decision on Jesse Marsh earlier. Who knows what could have happened? So there is a lot of resentment. And obviously there's resentment going back to the Championship as well with Villa. So there's a lot of kind of underlying factors as to why kind of the Villa one stung. But if we don't make those mistakes in previous games, we just take that result on the chin. We played well. We lost by a single goal. And that's that. But because we've seen this happen in games where we have deserved to have something out of it, then you know, it is one of those things. But it is frustrating, and I think that's, you know, kind of moving it back onto the female perspective. You know, I've had people messaging me, you know, very nicely, but just saying like, where am I? And I've taken a step back. It's not a permanent step back because I do want to come back into doing streaming, but with the current state of the world, and without making it super political, but with the current state of the world and everything that's going,
make it political,
everything that's going on with a lot of decisions, rulings, conversations around women in general and what their status is in the world, it makes it difficult to have an opinion and to be I want to have a conversation with people. I want to have a discussion, a debate, but there's so much toxicity around women having an opinion on anything that you then put a woman having an opinion on something that is this specific football team that we're talking about. It's men's football. So you talk about a woman having an opinion on men's football, and then you get things thrown back at you. And even if they're not outrightly saying, oh, well, you should get back in the kitchen or anything like that, even if they're not saying things like that, the amount of times that I have had to defend my opinion and also prove my opinion to beyond a shadow of a doubt, whereas if I had a penis, I wouldn't have had to do that, simply because of the fact of genitalia. That is the only difference, is that if I was a man, I wouldn't have to defend it. And sometimes, especially when you've got your own kind of personal life and struggles and things like that, sometimes it's too exhausting, and the positive side out of it is outweighed by the negatives. And I don't want to do that. So like, I love coming on here. You know, I love going on other people's shows because it's your people who watch you type of thing. And therefore I'm just an addition. I'm not kind of the main person. But when things are going wrong, everybody becomes a little bit toxic. And I think social media plays a massive part in that. But you then are a woman with an opinion during a crisis of Leeds currently, and I don't know whether we can call it a crisis, but we're in crap form. So whether you want to say it's a crisis or not is, anybody's personal choice. But we are not in a good moment of the club right now. We are in 18th, and the likelihood is we will finish the weekend in 18th as well. So, or potentially even further down. So, I mean, we're not going to be 20th because luckily Wolves have got our back. But
will we be when this video comes out? I don't know.
Yes. But it does make it more difficult. When things are positive, people are nicer. When Leeds are playing well, when Leeds are doing well, when Leeds have got a shock result that, is like, oh my God, that's incredible. When we've had something positive happen, all of a sudden people are more positive and they can accept your opinion because of the fact that a lot of the time we're all singing off the same hymn sheet because we're all positive about it. Yeah. When people are negative or, which I am all on board for, if you want to feel whatever you feel, that's fine. But it means that people are crueler and people lash out. And the most obvious thing for a woman to be attacked with, you don't know what you're talking about. What do you even think? Really? Like, go do your mascara, go back in the kitchen, and the irony is my husband is the one that cooks. So like all of these things, it just throws a lot into the world of when people are being negative about Leeds, people turn. And the easiest, most simplistic thing that you can do when you're challenging somebody's opinion and they happen to be a woman is question the fact that they're a woman. What's your opinion? Like, why? Somebody will have the exact same opinion as me, but if they're a man, they don't get questioned on it. They don't get asked to prove everything. A woman gets asked to prove. And that's the side of football that I still struggle with because it's so blatant. It's not even kind of like hushed. It's really obvious that people are like that and that people, if you don't agree with them and you are a woman, that's it. Like, you might as well just go because you're not going to be listened to. And, there's people within the sphere of Leeds United that act in similar ways. And it does make it difficult because how can you be around people and interact with people that you think, well, the only difference between you and me is our genders, and that's it. Yeah. So,
and the only reason that you might be respecting my opinion right now is because Leeds have won a game recently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the darker side of any football. That's not just specifically a Leeds thing. That's football in general. Because as well, you'll see it. You'll see these people comment on, like, I watch the England women's teams a lot. Like, I find that they play very good football. And I like the players. I like the attitudes. I like I can relate to them, not just on a female, like, woman basis, but also that kind of never give up spirit, the winning beyond really necessarily deserving it, the late goals, the late penalties. It reminds me of the Bielsa days in terms of the never say never attitude. But the amount of toxic men that comment when England have won a game or have won the Euros, like saying, oh, well done, ladies, well done. And they immediately say, well, the quality of football isn't as good as the men's. It's like, all right, say that's true. Say that's true. They're also playing against other women. So when you put it into context, actually the football is of an equal level because they're playing against one another. They're not playing men versus women. Women are playing against other women. So therefore, this England team are playing against teams that are just as good as them, and they are winning. The men's team, who have, what Calvin Phillips was one of the first ever championship players to break into the England team, and so you've got the majority of the rest of the England team are playing in the top 5 leagues across Europe, so they've got no excuse not to win. Like, they have some of the largest budgets for when you have a look at how those individual players what they would cost if you were to have to pay to put together an international team. They would be one of the most, the most. You've got Brazil, you've got Portugal, you've got England, you've got Germany, Spain. Like you're looking
France.
5 or 6, France. You're looking 5 or 6 countries that should be basically competing every single year for the top
90% of the time you can pick up your World Cup top 8 with no problems.
But yet we've not done it since 1966. So
weird that, isn't it? Yeah.
The women have won the Euros twice and have got to the final of the last World Cup as well.
And because I know that someone's going to mention it in the comments, saying that if there were a men's team playing against a women's team, the men would win. Yeah, obviously
there are physically different
differences. That's how that works. Like, that's okay. At the same time, you might beat Evie in a game of football. I can't see you pushing a child out of yourself. So
I've done that.
Bodies are built for different purposes.
Exactly.
It's fine. On the bit that you mentioned about not doing your own channel stuff because of the way that things get all toxic and things like that, I've mentioned this a couple of times, and I shall mention it again just in case some of these folks are watching. There are several times where I've very deliberately done sort of like purges of viewers, for example. Like, I've phrased that really badly, but there's a reason that every time there's like a big election or a big like political event going on, I'll go, I might do a stream on that, because even if there's someone that I disagree with, like if there is someone that, because I know what my opinion is on who should have won the last US election, but if there's someone that disagrees with me, there's a point at which if they disagree with me and then I ask, okay, why? And they just turn to abusive stuff, it's like, okay, cool, welcome to the block list. Whereas if they disagree with me and have a conversation on that, because sure, I disagree with you, but it's your right to have the opinion that I think is wildly wrong.
But it's still your right to have that
You have
opinion.
the right to have that opinion, but at the same time, you've allowed me to have my opinion, so that's how conversation works.
Exactly.
And that's fine. And having those little sort of purges has been kind of useful, because it means that...
I really love that. I really love that phrase.
Because it means that when things do go bad, then we're still in a situation of, yeah, but the chat's sort of fine. Because occasionally someone will pop in and just start spamming stuff like, Daniel Farker, out! Underwood, out! And shit like that. And it's kind of like, okay, you've got your opinion across. I know why you think this. Can you please message something else? Because we saw the first 8 times. But the 8 times after that, we don't really need to see, because we know what you think and the conversation's moved on. Yeah. And I think fostering a space where things are conversations rather than things are just voids in which people scream has sort of helped, and I hope that's made it feel like a little bit of a nicer space when you're doing stuff on this channel. I can't be certain, but I hope so.
It's a calm space is here, because it's a safe space, and like you said, it's not the difference of opinions that that bother either one of us. It's the way that you address your opinions. It's the way that you scream your opinions and also cover your ears so that you can't hear somebody else's logic. And when your own opinion is so deeply rooted in things that are really thinly veiled as racism, sexism, misogyny, religious bias, and anything like that, when your opinion can be picked apart in less than 10 seconds and you think, so the only reason you think that is because I'm a woman, or the only reason that you think that is because I'm not a season ticket holder, because then that's a different bias as well.
At that point, that becomes a weird sort of like classist thing, because it's like, well, either geographically, I literally cannot attend all Leeds United games, I work weekends.
Yeah.
Or you live in not Leeds, I live in not Leeds. We physically can't be there, but there's also going to be people who can't afford to go week in, week out. And the fact that the people that are in that position are just sort of like put in their own little box of, yeah, but you're not a real fan because you've not experienced Elland Road.
And like, you've also, or you've not experienced it in League One. Well, you weren't here in League One. Well, guess what? I was also 10 at the time. Yeah. So, like, I was growing up in poverty. I was in care. I didn't have the finances. I wasn't interested in football at the time, so why would I spend my money on that? But also, I find that mentality really weird because it's like they want to be back in League One. You know, like you can't say, "Oh, well, Leeds were in the Premier League, Leeds were in the Champions League," all of this, whilst then bashing the people that weren't there in the League One days, because it's like, well, what do you want? Do you want us to progress and to move further where you are going to attract more newer fans? Because that's how football works. Because if it's only ever the original people, guess what? You die. And then your club's never going to have any new people there.
Yeah.
So like it has to move, it has to progress. And I am like massively respect people who didn't give up on the club during, you know, the dark days of League One and who continued to spend their hard-earned money. But we've also been through a recession during that point. In fact, we've been through 3 or 4 recessions during that point now, and a global pandemic and a massive kind of crisis, like financial crisis of normal necessities are costing 5 times what they did 6 years ago. So people may be earning more than they ever have done before.
But they're also paying more than they ever have.
Yeah. So, you know, again, you look at the Freddos. Just look at the Freddos. That's all you have to do is to understand about inflation. It's go and look at Freddos. But I don't understand that mentality of I want Leeds to be successful, but also you weren't there during League One, so you don't deserve to see them be successful. But also, if you were there during the League One days, then we would have probably got out of League One much quicker because we'd have had more financial resources to spend on the team, get rid of absolute lunatics of ownerships that we've had, you know, in years gone by, and all of these things. So it's a journey. It doesn't have to be kind of, if you weren't here when this happened, then you don't deserve the success here because you only joined here. Like that's just not how life works. People dip in, people dip out. People have their own stuff that goes on, and yeah, that again gets thrown at, you know, lots of people, not just women, but just people in general. If you weren't there during this period of time, you're not a real fan. Okay, so what happens if it's only the people that were there in the League One days? When they die, essentially Leeds United will have 0 fans because we're not real. We don't class as real
we
fans.
don't count.
Yeah.
We spend hours of our time on, and I will be completely honest here, a lot of people are just like, yeah, but Joe, you do it for the pay. Have you seen how much YouTube pays? Have you? Because holy, in the past summer, it effectively became a part-time job doing YouTube stuff, and that ain't paying minimum wage. But and again, it's sort of, there's a weird sort of behind the League One bit. There's a weird like ageism to it as well, because it's like when we initially dropped to League One, I was like 9 years old. So I can't be a part of that. And the fact of the matter is, I was 9 years old, and there was a global financial crisis.
Yeah.
So even when I wanted to go to a game of football, that's not just something that you can just click your fingers and suddenly you can afford and go to all these football matches. That's not the reality of the situation. So, like, being a fan shouldn't have to rely on, yeah, but how many games did you go to? Because that's not what football is in 2025. It's
and also,
just not.
They keep on moving more and more and more games. So you may think, right, that date, I can make that date. I'm going to save up to go on that date. And then all of a sudden they change the date. Train times change. Train maintenance changes. So then what was a, 40-minute journey to get to Leeds is now a 2-hour bus journey. Also, speaking from somebody who gets incredibly travel sick, that's just not something I'm going to do because of the fact that I will just be feeling miserable the entire way there and the entire way back. And that's not even bringing the football into the equation, which, let's face it, if Leeds carry on, will be a loss. So, that's not even bringing the emotional damage into the situation. That's just me physically feeling poorly. And also, like, I've got dogs, I've got children as well, who there's only 1 out of the 3 of them that are really interested in football. So again, we either have to go on a day where it's just the adults, or we only take one of them, or we take all of them, and then two of them are like, oh, and it's a lot of money to spend for them not to enjoy it either, and to be cold, wet, and miserable at this time of year. So there's so many different factors, and I've got dogs, and I don't like to leave them for hours and hours and hours on end. And again, it's an hour and a half to get there, once you consider how bad the traffic is, parking, everything like that. An hour and a half to get there, an hour and a half to 2 hours for the game, then an hour back again. Like, that's a full day.
For me, it is the entire day. It's a 2-hour train.
Yeah.
Each way. And then you got going to the match, and I know that my brother tends to like to get there quite early, so he can sort of like take in the vibe. So it's like an hour pre-match. Match is about 2 hours. That's 7 hours.
Yeah.
Which is a lot. And then if it's a late game, then I'll end up staying around at my parents, because I can't really get a train back that comes into the station at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Because I don't live in the best of places, and the neighbours are scary.
And also, like, when this comes out, you'll be a dad.
Yeah.
So it's not just you and your wife anymore. It's you, your wife, and your daughter. So you also have to think of, well, what if they need me? And obviously I know at this moment that you don't drive. So it's not just a case of getting in a car and you can whiz straight back. I'm reliant on public transport. So all of these things go into getting there, and it takes a lot of effort to get there. And it's not saying that Leeds aren't worth the effort, but you can't always justify it. The older you get, and with a growing family and responsibilities and things like that, you can't always justify putting football first, even though it's an escapism. Is your escapism worth your wife having to take have a full day's worth of childcare on her own, essentially? So all these things come into the effect. And then as well, say you flip that round, you imagine the narrative if Kayla was the big football fan and you were to stay home and she was out all day. The judgment that a woman would face for doing that versus the judgment that a man does not get for doing that. It's important to socialize and all of these things, but you do that as a woman, you're selfish.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, by the way. I'm saying that that's what society, the complete, you stay and look after your child. You're not babysitting as well. That I'll get on my soapbox about that. I hate it. I hate it when people say, "Oh, you're babysitting today." It's your freaking child. You don't babysit your own children. You look after your children. Yeah, exactly. It's may have popped out of a woman, but it takes two to tango.
Yours.
So yeah, that's another kind of hardship of then the internal mum guilt that I have, thinking like I'm sacrificing this evening, or I'm dragging them out and it's freezing cold, or I'm going and I'm like leaving them with somebody else. Like, oh my God, I'm so terrible. I guarantee the majority of people that go to Leeds games are parents. And I doubt that those same thoughts go through the majority of their minds.
I got hit by a similar sort of guilt when I went to the Football Content Awards last week from time of recording, a few weeks ago from time of viewing. And the baby's not even here yet. And I was still kind of like, can I spend an overnight away? Because that feels really bad. And as a result, it was still a case of like, okay, but work is also offered 2 days after that. Do you want to go to London and work on this shift? And it's like, that's a really, really exciting shift, and I'd love to be able to do that, but I can't. And the same applies throughout football. So I'm genuinely considering entitling this video, "We're Not Real Fans." And seeing...
I think I
should. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Love a bit of clickbait.
Yeah, because apparently we're not, according to a lot of people. And what we've learned is there is going to be literally no way of my daughter being a real football fan. 1, because she's a woman. 2, because she doesn't live near Leeds. And 3, because I can't afford a season ticket and there's a long waiting list.
And also, she wasn't here during the League One days.
And she wasn't here during the League One days.
Yeah. Where was she during the League One days?
It's pathetic, honestly. Just do better. Yeah. I mean, she might be here during some League One days. But
Oh, jeez, let's not go that far. Like championship, I can handle, but let's not,
it won't get
shadow
that
League
bad.
One.
It won't. It's fine. We're okay. All will be fine.
That was what a depressing thought to finish on there, League One.
Yeah. Love a bit of therapy.
Yeah, no, I feel that it's been good. I feel like I've got a lot of issues off my chest.
That's fine. Yeah. Honestly, that's why I do these sometimes. It's like, have you got something to rant about? Okay, cool. On your part.
I always have something to rant about. Literally, like my life is just an entire rant.
I like it. I think next time we need to do one of these, but we do it live, so there's a chat and we can just sort of bounce off people. That'd be fun.
Yeah, let's do that next time.
Like
and plus, you'll have like really great bags under your eyes and stuff like that. You'll probably have like a nappy on your head.
Them. I've been working many night shifts lately. I've already got them. But
so you've got the no sleeping down to a fine art then.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Throughout, I think it was March this year. I do most of our work for both Formula One and MotoGP, and both Formula One and MotoGP had their Asian legs at the same time. So It was like Japan event, Australia, Malaysia, China, and it was like 5 weeks of. By the way, my darling wife, I'm working 1 a.m. till 8 a.m. today. Okay. And yeah, that's.
I'll see you as we're passing in the corridor.
I will see you for breakfast at 2 p.m.
Yeah. Oh gosh. No. Well, you'll be an absolute pro when it comes to nighttime feed-ins then.
And I'm really looking forward to it. Anyway. Thank you for popping on, Evie. Massively appreciated as always. And thank you for watching almost 52 minutes of what turned into not what we were expecting to begin with. If you liked it, pop a like on it. That'd be lovely. Subscribe if you're not yet. Even be a channel member if you fancy. And yeah, any more words for the people?
Turn on the notification bell.
Oh, that one. I like it. And hype the video. That's apparently a thing as well.
Woo! Yeah, I don't get that, but still like hype it up.
Yeah.
I think this should be like the thumbnail.
Anyway.
Oh dear.
No, in fact, can we do that now and I'll like print screen it? Oh shit! I need to print screen my elbow. I can't. I'll get it afterwards. Anyway, thank you for popping along, and we will see you later. Toodaloo.